But then on top of that, Caitlin Clark is eligible to be that max contract player because of this new rule in 2027. So that is the player if you're the Indiana Fever, if you're any franchise for that matter. I would assume that Caitlin Clark would get that priority to become your max contract player, your franchise player. She is currently already the face of the league. The Indiana Fever would have to clear that space for her.
The WNBA just dropped a CBA proposal that has veterans fuming and young superstars quietly celebrating. In simple terms, the league is sending a very clear message to its future franchise players. You'll get paid sooner and you'll get paid bigger. Meanwhile, the veterans who spent years grinding to build the league are left watching the shift happen in real time. And the wild part? The drama hasn't even fully started yet, but the tension is already impossible to ignore.
Revenue sharing model, and they are also not budging on the salary cap. So the one that they just submitted said the salary cap will still be at $5.75 million. Now, as we have seen before, both sides have conceded on things that to me just feel like minor details, like they've gone back and forth about the housing, and now the WNBA said that they will provide housing. And they've also talked about, like exclusivity was something that was immediately taken off the table months ago. So all of these little extra things, both sides have been conceding on, but when it comes down to the revenue sharing and the salary cap, both sides are still very far apart from one another. But there is one thing in the most recent proposal from the WNBA that stood out to me, and that was this. It said players on rookie contracts who are first or second team all.
Here's what the offer actually says. Players on rookie contracts who earn first team or second team all-league honors would become eligible to sign a maximum contract in their fourth season. And once they sign that extension, they wouldn't be subject to a franchise tag afterward. In other words, the league is opening the door for elite young stars to secure major money much earlier in their careers.
One player currently, with how the salary structure is, could get that max contract. So this is where it really starts getting sticky with some of these teams if players' goal is to be that max contract salary player, because as of right now, there's only room for one of those players on every single team. Only one. So with the Indiana Fever, who do they offer that max salary to? Do they offer it to Kelsey Mitchell, someone who's been a veteran in this league, but maybe has less years to go before she retires? Or do you sign somebody like Aaliyah Boston and try to keep her, and she's a younger player and she has the potential to be with that franchise for many years to come? But then on top of that, Caitlin Clark is eligible to be that max contract player because of this new rule in 2027. So that is the player if you're the Indiana Fever, if you're any franchise for that matter. I would assume that Caitlin Clark would get that priority to become your max contract.
Now, to be fair, $5.75 million is still well below what the players' union wants. The union has been pushing for a salary cap closer to $9 million. Meanwhile, the league is holding firm at $5.75 million in year one, with the cap gradually rising to $8.5 million by year 6. That $8 million revenue sharing payment came during a season when one of the league's biggest stars, Caitlin Clark, missed the majority of the games due to injury. She was never officially ruled out for the season. She traveled with the team, stayed visible, and sat courtside at nearly every game, but she wasn't on the floor most nights. Yet despite that absence, the league still generated enough revenue to cross the threshold for revenue sharing for the first time ever. Which raises a bigger question about the direction the league is heading, and just how much the presence of emerging stars like Caitlin Clark, Paige Bueckers, and Aaliyah Boston is already reshaping
this current offer. Now, that's not to say that some of these players might not even care about their max contract or staying with a team only because of that. And there is probably players who would take a bit of a pay cut if they knew they could stay with a team that has a core that they really like to play with, or they know they can win a championship with this team in the next few seasons. But that was something that I thought was so very interesting, and is also the reason why I'm a bit concerned that free agency is going to be so short, because the reality of it is even if the CBA got signed today, they're already so late. At this point in time in the year, the expansion teams would have already literally had their rosters by now. Most all teams would have had their rosters set in stone by now. We are already well past that date. And as we know,
so now the players are probably sitting down with spreadsheets, or at least they should be, and doing some very straightforward math. If revenue sharing produced $8 million during a season when the league's biggest draw, Caitlin Clark, was sidelined for most of the year, what does that number look like in 2026 if she plays a full season? What does it become in 2027 as the league's momentum keeps building? And what happens when Paige Bueckers officially enters the Women's National Basketball Association and two of the most talked about young stars in women's basketball are both on the floor for an entire season? Those projections for revenue sharing have almost certainly shifted since that first $8 million payout landed. And when projections shift, opinions inside negotiations tend to shift as well. Because there's a big psychological difference between a theoretical revenue-sharing system and one that has already produced real money. The players have now seen it happen. They've received the check. That changes how people evaluate the current offer. And that context makes the recent comments from Kelsey Plum especially interesting. Plum, who serves as vice president of the WNBA Players Association, sounded noticeably different this week than someone taking a hardline negotiating stance. Instead, her tone felt more like someone preparing to land the plane.
You're a max contract player. Like the fact that your free agency of the biggest CBA that you have ever had in the history of the WNBA, the most money that any of these players have ever seen in their professional women's basketball careers, the fact that you now only have a week to figure out your destiny, a lot of these players are going to take one-year deals, but that is not good for the fan experience. Now, if it ends up just being just this year, people are taking one-year deals, and then next year there's going to be a lot of shuffling, and that's like the...
Now, let's get to the part that could genuinely create tension inside locker rooms. The new clause that fast-tracks max contracts for young stars is almost guaranteed to create friction between veteran players and the league's rising generation. And the truth is, the league knew that when it added the clause. This wasn't accidental. It was a calculated move designed to apply just enough pressure inside the union to help push a deal across the finish line. Think about it from the league's perspective. On one side, you have veteran players who have spent years in the Women's National Basketball Association fighting for better pay, better facilities, and better treatment across the board. Many of them carried the league through seasons when ratings were low and arenas were half full. On the other side, you now have a wave of younger stars, some not even in the league yet, whose earning potential under this new framework is dramatically higher than anything that existed before. Players like Paige Bueckers could enter the league with a financial trajectory that veterans simply never had. And that contrast is where the tension starts. The veterans built the foundation. They played through the years when average salaries felt closer to an entry-level office job than a professional sports paycheck. They kept the league alive when national attention was limited and sponsorships were scarce. They absolutely deserve credit for that. But leagues don't operate by paying for the past. Right now, the players driving future revenue are young, and their names are already headline material. So when the league says, if you're on a rookie contract and you make all league, you can sign a max deal in your fourth year, what they're really saying is something more direct. We know which players are generating the next wave of money, and we're making sure they stay here. Take the Indiana Fever as a perfect example of how complicated this can become. Aaliyah Boston could be eligible for a max contract in 2026. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell has already been a key piece of that team for years. But under the current structure, only one player per team can hold a max contract at a time. That means the Fever's front office isn't just thinking about next season, they're thinking about 2027, when Caitlin Clark could become max eligible herself. Every dollar committed today could complicate that moment tomorrow. This is why the decisions teams make during this compressed free agency window aren't just about winning in 2026. They're about positioning for 2027 and beyond. Teams that fail to think that far ahead could find themselves in a very uncomfortable spot when their franchise players' payday arrives. Now zoom out, because but the tone of the negotiations has noticeably shifted. Players who once talked openly about sitting out are now saying they want to play. Veterans who were once the loudest voices about holding the line have grown quieter. And younger players, the ones who stand to gain the most from the new structure, don't appear eager to drag negotiations out indefinitely. At a recent media event, Paige Bueckers said both sides need to start moving because she wants to have a season. She was blunt about it. She loves basketball and doesn't want to strike. Months earlier, Caitlin Clark said something similar and faced criticism for it. Now multiple players are expressing the same sentiment, and suddenly it sounds a lot more reasonable. The league, meanwhile, has been patient. And in this moment, that patience seems to be paying off. The offer on the table creates a clear financial path for the stars of the future. It keeps the revenue-sharing structure largely on the league's terms. And it introduces just enough internal tension within the union that the loudest calls for a strike are becoming increasingly isolated. All of this is happening right before the March 10th deadline, which means the pressure now shifts squarely onto the players. Do they want a season, or do they want to continue the fight? That's not accidental. That's strategic positioning. The WNBA has made its move, and it's a bold one. Young stars are being fast-tracked toward max money. Veterans are